English translation, 285th contact. Sunday, 2nd July 2000, 08:11 hours.
Be greeted, my friend, and excuse me for calling you so early. But you called me and explained that it would be urgent. You look pretty tired.
Well, be welcome anyway, and thank you for that. Yes, I am still tired. Basically, at this time it is for me the middle of the night. I have barely slept about 4 hours. You well know that I do not go to bed until the morning hours.
Of course, but I came so quickly because you called me in urgently.
Well, that is quite right. I also do not complain. On the contrary, I am glad that you have appeared.
You inquired whether I could get in touch with Ptah, because certain things concerning the organization of the group regarding the service duties of the core group members would not be clear, and that you would in this respect require a quick answer, that is to say, clarification. For this purpose, it is not necessary that Ptah is involved, because I, for my part, have been trained and instructed by him and Quetzal in all matters relating to this. Hence, I can also give clarification. Then what is this about?
That being so, then the following has to be clarified. Ptah and Quetzal have issued the rule for us that the national and so-called holy holidays must be handled in such a wise in relation to Sunday services that all group members are involved in them, and that these services shall in no wise be exchanged or otherwise undergo cancellation. But now it is the case that, for example, on the next 1st of August, which will then indeed be one of these Sundays, Stefan has to go to Germany for work and training purposes. However, this cannot be reconciled with the clause that these Sundays, which cannot be cancelled, that is to say, these Sunday services cannot be exchanged or otherwise undergo cancellation. In this context, the question has been raised as to what is the situation with regard to the exceptions which, among other things, state and specify that absences due to work or training, etc., ought to be approved. Myself, I have understood that there should be no possibility at all to circumvent these specific holidays in relation to fulfillments of duties. Have I been mistaken, or have I foolishly misunderstood and misinterpreted the explanations given by Ptah and Quetzal?
This is a misunderstanding on your part. It is a fact that also the Sunday services you mentioned are linked to the exceptions. These regulations must apply in every case, namely in the form in which they are in accordance with the regulations recorded in writing.
Then that is clear. However, the question now is, where are the equal rights of all core group members if they are assigned to these specific Sunday services and then anyhow do not have to fulfill them due to work or training or due to other cancellations determined by the cancellation regulation?
Evidently, you were quite inattentive during the explanations given to you, because the rule was given that any cancellations arising as a result of the exceptions shall not simply be written off, but that such cancelled service duties shall be shifted to the same holiday, that is to say, Sunday of the directly following year, which has to be taken into account during the next compilation of the service list. This must be handled in such a wise for the reason that in the course of time, actually all Sundays and holidays of specific form will be fulfilled in duty-based manner by each group member. This is a result of what you call the equal rights.
One can also say equality or justice.
That is also applicable?
Then again, a question that arose at yesterday's General Assembly. As far as I know, there has always been a regulation that an exchange of night watches is permitted if a core group member undertakes a journey or similar which extends that far that it would be an unreasonable demand or simply an impossibility to come here and fulfill the night watch service. Or is there also a misunderstanding or an inattention while listening on my part?
That is not the case. You have established distance circles for such matters, and what you have just mentioned falls within the scope of these circles, namely, the singing circle.
Good, then the matter is clear. But now that you are already here, may I then still ask you 2 or 3 questions?
Of course.
Todd told me he would ask you if he would be allowed to create a portrait line drawing of you. Did he do that? And if so, what do you think of it?
He talked to me about it, yes, but I do not want a picture to be made of me.
Then we will come to terms with it. Nevertheless, thank you very much.
I do not understand?
Simply because you have made up your mind. Here, these are the portraits of Ptah, Quetzal, and Sfath, which Christian Krakowski has worked out by drawing. How do you like them?
Ptah is reproduced very realistically, but so is Quetzal. I cannot say anything regarding Sfath, because I neither knew him, nor have I ever seen a portrait of him.
Thanks for your assessment. Oh yes, I have one more time a question concerning the specific Sunday services. What is to be done during vacations, that is to say, leave or for strictly private things?
Vacations and purely private things cannot be considered, rather only the other points mentioned in the regulations on exceptions.
Then everything is clear. Then I have a question regarding more highly developed races in the universe. Is it possible that you might encounter those as well, or that you have already come into contact with them?
Indeed, that is the case. We maintain contacts in this regard both in our Dern universe and also in the Dal universe.
And do you also benefit from this, at least from a medical and technical point of view?
That is the case naturally. However, we do not only have advantages in medical and technical terms.
Well, I could have guessed that. But may I now still ask whether you are well versed in the original Stonehenge circumstances? By that I mean the megalithic monument north of Salisbury in England. The enormous ruins are partly still allow the arrangement of that time to be quite accurately recognized. The whole originally consisted of 30 mighty pillars, which were arranged in a circular row, whereby these were connected at the top with likewise large stone horizontal beams. Within the large circle there was at least originally a second, smaller circle. In the latter's central middle was something like an altar or sacrificial stone, but what it represented has hitherto remained a secret. Also, the actual sense of the monument has not been clarified until today. It is generally assumed that it was originally a religious building, but there are many different interpretations, especially towards the occult.
I have indeed dealt with the megalithic structure of Stonehenge. The site, located in the Wiltshire area of southern England, was built in several construction phases, whereby almost concentric circles of mighty stones were inserted into an original trench and wall ring with radial extension. There were initially, in fact, 30 stones, as you said, namely in the outer ring. This one consisted of 4-meter-high stone pillars connected by capstones, that is to say, by horizontal beams, as you call them. Inside this ring, that is to say circle, there was a horseshoe-shaped settlement consisting of 5 large gate-like trilithons. In the center of both circles there was in fact a structure, a large carved stone, which served as an altar as well as a sacrificial site, and central observation and analysis point for astronomical calculations. Furthermore, the whole was a place of worship of religious barbarian form, whereby the altar played an important and very special role, because on this altar sacrifices were also offered, which were not rarely of human nature. The altar was therefore also a sacrificial stone. Moreover, the same altar and cult sacrificial stone was also used as an execution stone, which means that not only human sacrifices were offered on it, but also executions took place on it with regard to those sentenced to death.
Then the whole thing was a site of cultic worship, as well as place of astronomy, and site of blood at the same time.
That is right, whereby, however, it must not be forgotten that at that place there was also taught and decided about right or wrong, and thus also about life and death. But now, my friend, I must turn again to my duties. Nevertheless, it would suit me if I were allowed to visit you in 2 or 3 days to talk to you about a private matter on which I need your advice.
Of course, Just come here. I am actually always reachable. All you have to do is call me.
My gratitude shall be assured to you. Goodbye.
Take care, my child.